These devices, far ahead of their time, highlight a profound understanding of mechanical principles that ancient people had. So we're counting down 15 of the most advanced ancient machines. Let's start with number 15, Lu Zhang's south-pointing chariot. When traveling across huge distances, it's vital that you know what direction you're pointing in, but before the invention of the compass, there really weren't many reliable ways to do that. In ancient China, though, a scholar and official of the Western Han Dynasty is credited with the creation of a device known as the south-pointing chariot, which is an amazing example of early mechanical ingenuity and is sometimes referred to as one of the earliest forms of a navigational compass. The chariot was supposedly invented to ensure that the chariot's figure, typically a wooden figure or statue mounted on it, would always point south, regardless of how the chariot was turned or moved. The earliest references to these kind of devices come from around the 3rd century BCE, but Lu Zhang's contributions in the 1st century BCE are when it is considered one of the earliest examples of such a mechanism in history. The differential gear is now a fundamental component in modern machinery, particularly in the automotive industry. The use of these kinds of advanced mechanical concepts in ancient times shows just how sophisticated the Chinese understanding of engineering really was. Number 14, the Greek water clock. The Greek water clock, also known as the clepsydra, was an ancient timekeeping device that used the steady flow of water to measure time. The clepsydra is one of the oldest types of clocks, with origins dating back to ancient Egypt and Babylon, but it was the Greeks who refined and popularized its use. Now, in its most basic form, the clepsydra was made up of a vessel filled with water, which had a small hole at the bottom. As the water slowly dripped out, the level inside the vessel would decrease, and this change in water level could be calibrated to measure the passage of time. The early versions of these clocks were pretty simple and mainly used to measure short periods, such as the length of speeches or the time allowed for a elaborate display that showed the time on a dial with a pointer. Ctesibius's water clocks were so precise that they could be used for timing astronomical events, which was significant. It was an improvement over earlier versions. Number 13, the ballista. The ballista is an ancient, powerful weapon developed by the Greeks and later refined by the Romans, and it played a crucial role in siege warfare. Resembling a giant crossbow, the ballista used torsion-powered mechanisms to launch large projectiles such as stones, darts, or heavy bolts over long distances, and with great accuracy. Its origins can be traced back to the Greeks, specifically to the engineers in Syracuse during the 4th century BCE, under the reign of Dionysius I. These early Greek versions were known as katapeltai, and mainly used for hurling smaller projectiles like arrows or stones. The Greek ballista used twisted skeins of sinew or hair, a principle known as torsion, to store and release energy. And when the weapon was fired, the tension in the engines, like the catapult or the trebuchet, which relied more on sheer force, the ballista could be aimed with precision. In siege warfare, the ballista was often used to target enemy defenses such as walls, towers, and gates, gradually weakening them or until they could be breached. But the use of ballistae fell out of fashion with the fall of the Roman Empire, but their influence persisted in the development of medieval siege machinery and artillery. The principles of torsion and mechanical engineering demonstrated in the ballista lay the groundwork for later innovations in weaponry and military technology, even to this day. Number 12, the Archimedes screw. The Archimedes screw, it's one of the most ingenious inventions from ancient times, attributed to the Greek mathematician and engineer Archimedes of Syracuse in the 3rd century BCE. The simple yet effective device was designed to move water from lower levels to higher places and has had a lasting impact on engineering and agriculture. The Archimedes screw is made up of a helical surface wrapped tasks, allowing water to be transported over significant vertical distances with relatively little effort. The screw's design is so effective and easy to use that it has remained virtually unchanged for over 2 millennia. Even today, modern variations of the screw are used in a variety of industries. For example, it's used in wastewater treatment plants to transport sewage, in grain silos to move bulk materials, and in hydroelectric power plants, where Archimedean screws are used as turbines to generate electricity from flowing water. Number 11, Hero's steam engine. So we usually think of steam engines as being machines from the Industrial Revolution, but humans have been building devices that harness the power of steam for far longer. Hero's steam engine, also known as the Aeolipile, is one of the earliest recorded devices to do so, and dates back to the 1st century CE. This invention was imagined by Hero of Alexandria. The aioli pile is considered the first rudimentary steam exited through the nozzles. It created a reactive force that caused the sphere to spin, much like a modern-day jet engine operates by expelling gas to generate thrust. This machine demonstrated the principles of action and reaction, as described later on by Newton's third law of motion, where every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The steam escaping from the nozzles pushed against the air, causing the sphere to rotate in the opposite direction. Hero regarded it more as a curiosity or a toy, rather than as a device with a practical utility. It was primarily used to entertain or demonstrate the power of steam, rather than to perform any useful work. It is fascinating to see how close Hero was to a technological breakthrough that could have revolutionized the ancient world. But though it remained largely a theoretical curiosity, and the potential of steam power would not be fully realized until the 18th century, when engineers like Thomas Newcomen and James Watt developed practical steam engines that could drive machinery and transportation. Number 10. The astrolabe. An astrolabe is a sophisticated analog device that can be thought of as an early analog computer for solving problems related to time and the position of the stars. The instrument is made up of a flat, circular plate called the mater, which serves as the base. Over this base is a rotating disc called the rete, which is a skeletal framework with pointers representing the positions of important stars. The rete rotates over a background plate, which is engraved with a stereographic projection of the sky, typically including lines for the horizon, the zenith, and the meridian, as well as circles representing the tropics and the equator. In astronomy, it could measure the altitude of celestial bodies, determine the time of day or night, and calculate the position of the stars and planets. It could also be used to find the time of sunrise and sunset, determine the length of the day, and even predict eclipses. For navigators, the astrolabe was invaluable in determining latitude while at sea, making it an essential device for early explorers and mariners. What was revolutionary about it was its ability. A simplified version adapted for use at sea became an essential instrument for European navigators, enabling them to embark on long voyages across uncharted waters. Number 9. Persian windmills. Persian windmills are one of the earliest known instances of harnessing wind power for mechanical work. Originating in the region of modern-day Iran, these windmills were developed during the early centuries of the first millennium, around the 7th century CE, although some sources suggest they may have been in use even earlier. These windmills were mainly used for grinding grain and pumping water, making them vital to the agricultural economy of the regions. Unlike the more familiar European windmills, which typically have large, horizontally rotating blades, Persian windmills were vertical axis windmills. They were made of a vertical shaft connected to a series of wooden blades or sails, which were mounted with a rectangular tower-like structure. The entire assembly was often made from locally available materials such as wood, reed, and clay. Regardless of the wind's direction, which is a significant advantage over the horizontal axis windmills. This made Persian windmills pretty effective in the environments where winds might change direction or where constant alignment with the wind would be difficult to maintain. Today, some of these ancient windmills can still be found in parts of Iran, particularly in the provinces of Sistan and Balochistan, where they've been in continuous use for centuries. The principles behind how they work have also found new relevance in modern times. As an interest in renewable energy sources has grown, the vertical axis wind turbine, inspired by the ancient Persian design, is being explored as a viable option for generating electricity in urban environments. Number 8. The pantograph. The pantograph is a mechanical device with a rich history that stretches back to ancient times. Its primary function is to replicate, enlarge, or reduce drawings, designs, or patterns with precision. The name pantograph is derived from the Greek words pantos, meaning all, and called the tracing point, is moved over a pattern or drawing. Another point, known as the drawing point, replicates the motion on another surface. By adjusting the length of the rods or the position of the drawing point, the user can create a copy that is either the same size as the original, enlarged, or reduced. Artists and draftsmen found the device really useful for scaling drawings and creating detailed, larger versions of small sketches, or reducing large images with high accuracy. This was especially important before the advent of modern photocopying and printing techniques. In addition to its applications in art, though, the pantograph became an essential tool in engraving, where it was used to transfer intricate designs onto metal surfaces. This was crucial for the creation of coins, medals, and printing plates, where precision was paramount. The pantograph also played an important role in the early development of mechanical engineering. In the early 19th century, it was adapted for use in machine tools, allowing for the production of complex parts and patterns in metalwork, iconic structures of the ancient world. The device, which harnessed human power to lift heavy loads, represented a significant advancement in the field of construction and engineering. It was essentially a large wooden wheel mounted horizontally with a rope or a cable wound around an axle. Workers would walk inside the wheel much like a modern hamster wheel, causing it to rotate. As the wheel turned, the rope would wind around the axle, lifting a load attached to the other end of the rope. The mechanical advantage provided by the wheel allowed a relatively small number of workers to lift heavy stones, columns, and other construction materials. The origins of the treadwheel crane can be traced back to the 5th century BCE in ancient Greece. The earliest cranes were simple machines that used levers and pulleys, but the introduction of the treadwheel significantly increased their efficiency. One of the most famous examples of the use of a treadwheel crane in ancient Greece is the construction of the Parthenon in Athens. Built between 447 and 432 BCE, it required the lifting and precise placement of enormous amount of the treadwheel crane has remained in use for centuries and was a common sight in medieval construction projects, where it was used to build cathedrals and castles across Europe. Number 6. Hero's vending machine. Well, it's Hero again, Hero of Alexandria, a prolific Greek engineer and mathematician of the 1st century CE. Hero's vending machine was created to serve temples, where visitors needed to access holy water for purification rituals. The device operated on a simple principle that when a coin was inserted into a slot at the top of the machine, it would fall onto a pan that was attached to a lever. The weight of the coin would then cause the pan to tilt, which in turn pulled the valve open, allowing a small amount of water to flow out of the machine. After the coin slid off the pan and into the collection box, the pan would return to its original position, closing the valve and stopping the flow of water. This ensured that each coin would dispense a specific controlled amount of water, preventing wastage or overuse. This automation not only made the process that Hero was known for. Number 5. The Baghdad Battery. The Baghdad Battery is one of the most mysterious artifacts from the ancient world, often sparking debates among historians about its true purpose and significance. Discovered in the 1930s in modern-day Baghdad, Iraq, the ancient artifact is made up of a small terracotta pot, copper cylinder, and an iron rod. It's believed to date back to the Parthian or Sasanian periods, roughly around 150 to 600 CE, although the exact dating remains uncertain. Now, the basic structure of the Baghdad Battery is relatively simple. The terracotta pot is about 6 inches or 15 centimeters high and contains a cylindrical copper sheet, which is rolled into a tube and soldered with a lead-tin alloy. The iron rod is placed inside the copper cylinder, and the cylinder is sealed at the bottom with bitumen. This bitumen also insulates the iron rod from the copper cylinder, preventing it from coming into direct contact. Some reconstructions suggest that the jar would have been filled with an acidic liquid, supported by evidence that the ancient Egyptians and other civilizations knew of methods to gild metals with gold or silver, and it's possible that the Parthians or Sasanians could have used similar techniques. Not everyone, though, is convinced that the Baghdad Battery was intended to be a battery at all. Some argue that the artifact could have served a different non-electrical purpose, such as being a simple storage vessel for scrolls or other small objects. The materials used, copper, iron, and bitumen, were common in the ancient world and could have been there for various purposes unrelated to electricity. Furthermore, there's no direct evidence from ancient texts or other sources that confirm the use of electricity in those cultures, which leaves the battery theory open to some interpretation. Number 4. The Greek lever press. The Greek lever press is one of the earliest applications of the principle of the lever, which is a simple machine that's been used for thousands of years to magnify force. The device, which was a result of the mechanical insights of ancient Greek engineers and scientists, particularly Archimedes, were able to multiply force, making it possible to lift or compress objects that would otherwise require much strength. The lever press used a long wooden beam as the lever, with one end attached to a large stone or weighted counterbalance. The olives would be placed in a bag or basket underneath a heavy stone and connecting the lever to the arm. When force was applied to the opposite end of the lever, usually by human effort or additional weights, the pressed stone would lower, crushing the olives and squeezing out the oil. This design allowed for the application of significant pressure, ensuring that all of the oil was extracted from the olives. It was also used in winemaking, where similar techniques were applied to press grapes. Additionally, the principles of lever were utilized in the construction of Greek architecture and engineering projects. Large stone blocks used in temples and other structures were often moved or lifted using lever systems. The importance of the lever press isn't just in its practical applications though, but also in the wider understanding of the mechanical principles that had Ctesibius of Alexandria, a Greek engineer and inventor we've already talked about. This is a unique instrument that combined principles of hydraulics with musical creativity, and it resulted in a powerful and versatile instrument that became popular in both public entertainment and private settings. The basic design of the hydraulis involved a large container filled with water, known as the wind chest, which was connected to a series of pipes. Air was forced into the wind chest by a pump, and the water acted as a regulator, maintaining a consistent air pressure within the chamber. When a key on the keyboard was pressed, it opened a valve that allowed air to flow from the wind chest into the corresponding pipe, producing a sound. One of the major things about the hydraulis at the time was its ability to produce sustained, powerful sounds. The use of water pressure to regulate the air in the instrument to maintain a steady tone was a significant improvement over earlier wind instruments. It was capable of playing both soft and loud music, and its sound could be varied depending on the configuration of the pipes and the amount of air pressure applied. Prior, the instrument had largely disappeared. However, its influence persisted, particularly in the development of later keyboard instruments. The principles of air regulation and pipe construction used in the hydraulis laid the groundwork for the development of the pipe organ. Number 2. The Antikythera mechanism. The Antikythera mechanism, it is one of the most mysterious artifacts from the ancient world, often described as the world's first known analog computer. Discovered in 1901 by sponge divers off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, this device dates back to around 150 to 100 BCE during the Hellenistic period. When first discovered, the device was corroded and broken into many fragments, but over decades of study, researchers have gradually uncovered its secrets. The mechanism's purpose was to predict astronomical positions and eclipses, making it an essential tool for understanding the cosmos. It could track the cycles of the moon and the sun, the phases of the moon, and even the irregular orbit of the moon. And another indicating the 76-year Callippic cycle, an improvement on the Metonic cycle for predicting the positions of the moon and the planets more accurately. Before its discovery, it was widely believed that such advanced mechanical devices didn't exist until the Middle Ages. This mechanism suggests that the Greeks had a deep understanding of astronomy and mechanics, and they were capable of creating highly accurate instruments. The technology in the Antikythera mechanism would not be matched until the development of complex clocks and astronomical instruments during the Renaissance. Number 1. Zhang Heng's seismoscope. Earthquakes, they have, of course, affected humans forever, but the idea of detecting them is far from being a modern concept. Zhang Heng's seismoscope, invented in 132 CE, is one of the most impressive achievements of ancient China, and it represents the earliest known attempt to measure seismic events. Zhang Heng is a polymath known for his work in astronomy, mathematics, and engineering. He created this device when an earthquake happened, the mechanism inside the seismoscope would cause one of the dragon heads to release a small bronze ball, which would fall into the open mouth of the toad directly beneath it. The direction in which the ball fell indicated the direction from which the seismic waves had originated. For instance, if the ball fell from the dragon facing west, it suggested that the earthquake had happened to the west of the seismoscope's location. This early detection allowed for a rapid response to the affected regions, which was crucial for a vast empire like Han China, where distant provinces could be severely impacted by such natural disasters. Zhang Heng's invention was revolutionary not just because it was the first known seismoscope, but also because it demonstrated a deep understanding of the principles of seismology and mechanical engineering. His work predated the development of modern seismographs by more than a millennium. As well as itself being important because a response could be sent to affected regions, it's also an indicator of the wider trend in China of applying scientific knowledge to practical problems.